interaction with the world is essential, because now we may not be in the flat world, but we are still in a flat world with some riches. But that goes without saying.
You know, your book on Narendra Modi and his challenges, which you wrote, and you've said that how you were trying to be objective about appraising the leader.
He has a vision which is quite amazing for the country, and he works 24/7 to achieve that vision. When the Brits came to India, our share of the global economy was 18%.
You mentioned ChatGPT and AI in the middle, and for a country that's so youth-centric, and you want to keep up with the technology abroad.
Let me start off by saying that there is no point or purpose in thinking about stopping AI or banning AI. The genie is well out of the bottle, so that cannot happen. And there is no power on earth. Government doesn't have that kind of to be able to stop it.
Where do you think India is right now in terms of AI, and what should we do?
Now, AI can be used in some sense to create a much richer curriculum for our students, and also to effectively give a one-on-one tutors. You can actually use AI to bring that whole teaching or learning to the child's home, and they can interact with it. And as AI develops more and more.
Namaste everyone. Today we are being joined by Dr. Rajiv Kumar ji, who's an economist, an author, and the former vice chairman for the Niti Aayog. He has now resumed his role as the chairman of Pahle India Foundation, which he founded in 2013, and we are the office of Pahle India Foundation. Namaste Rajiv ji, thank you for joining us.
Great pleasure.
First of all, please take our viewers through what Pahle India Foundation does, and when you say you give inputs to policymakers, how does that process take place? How does your research take place, and how do you go about it?
So thanks for this interview, thanks for this opportunity, and welcome to Pahle India's small office. As you said, we were established in 2013, and actually the first project that we did, which was the reason for founding this, was to write a vision document for the BJP, for which the committee was chaired by Mr. Nitin Gadkari. And we worked on that, and that was later published as a book called Resurgent India, and so on. So that was that part of it. After that, we decided that we will work on areas which are less worked upon. And for example, one of the things was the defense economics. So because defense had become a kind of a black box, nobody is going to talk about what's the relationship to the economy, how it can become one of the drivers of the economy. We got a lot of very good motivation and support by late Mr. Mohan Padikar, and we contributed actually to the beginning, if you like, of getting the private sector involved into this. And there are similar other areas like the financial sector, or the regulations, or the small and medium enterprises and agriculture, which is very well worked upon, but not in the way that we look at it, which is that how to make the transition from a chemical-based agriculture to a non-chemical-based agriculture. That's what our focus is. So those are the areas that we've been working on. And now what we are doing is there are two big sort of focus for us. One is a rather ambitious project called Bharat at 100, which is not just about getting numbers right and so on, 30 million, 40, no, not that. So what is it that we expect, or what is it that we aspire for India to be at that time? What will it look like multidimensionally? More importantly, what are the challenges to get there? Because and how do we tackle them? So we've identified 13 of them at the moment. Okay. And then for each one we will have a group of domain experts, and then we'll try and work on them. Then we'll try and create what are called living labs, so that if there is a good idea, then we can try and give it to the people who are working on the ground, the NGOs, and say that, look, why don't you try this out? And also identify those who are already working with some very good ideas and see how we can scale and replicate them, etc. So that's the thought for Bharat at 100. We will not produce a book. We will only have a dashboard, which will talk about a baseline and our progress. And then build in there a platform which will bring all the stakeholders together.
Yeah, which like you just had an event in Bombay for that. Yeah.
It was quite an amazing event, and and 37 of the top people from the industry, business, academia, media, they all came there, and that was the thought. And they came, and one of the things is that we want to create a basic platform for trust between the different stakeholders. Two-way communication, two-way, civil society, government, business, entrepreneurs, all of them. If we can be on the same page and pull together,
But this was a closed room discussion. So, are you ready to talk about it at all right now? When you say 30, you've identified 13. What are the top 3 challenges you think? Or you think there's time when you release it together?
No, we can begin to talk about it. And for example, the top 3 is, of course, artificial intelligence and its impact on employment. And as to why, and then secondly, agriculture, as I mentioned to you, which is that there is no way that we can continue with this chemical-based agriculture. And on the other hand, if you shift to natural farming, which is chemical-free farming, that can be a single point answer to India's multiple problems, which is soil health, water, water usage, energy, environment. Because when you do natural farming, you actually increase the organic carbon content in the soil, and all of that comes from the atmosphere. So that plus your big thing, health. All these cancer trains that go from Bhatinda to Bikaner and so on. All of that is because of and then combining that with precision agriculture. So if you can do that along with using, now that's where the technology comes in. So the very big challenge overall is technology, and how in this most turbulent time, how do we do this? How does it affect our productivity in different sectors? The third is employment, in the sense that we have the issue of generating employment where people are, because we can't go through this mass migration things. The recent estimates are about 40 million people migrate
to cities. So you want
to also India is like that, and this part is developing at about twice or thrice the rate as this part. This crescent of growth, starting with NCR and go to Rajasthan, Gujarat, Bombay, Pune, Chennai, Bangalore, Chennai, and all of this migrates comes here. Northeast migrates to southwest. Can't happen any longer. We can't be a China with 400 million people moving from. So we have to generate jobs. Now, how do we do that? So these are the kind of enormous challenges that we have. Plus, on education, that's the biggest challenge. Because demographic dividend, absolutely, but it will come only when you develop your human resources and education and health. So those are the kind of things. So we are not mincing any words. We are saying we have done a lot. By the way, the starting point of all of this is that this is India's moment. From various reasons, externally, internally, and whatever we've done in the last 8 years and so on. But we need to seize that.
And as someone who was the economic advisor in the 90s, you've really seen this trajectory. So when you say India's moment right now, economically, what does that mean? Like, will we internally create prosperity for ourselves or interaction with the world?
Interaction with the world is essential, because now we may not be in the flat world, but we are still in a flat world with some riches. But that goes without saying. So you have to interact. You have to become a bigger part of the global economy. Now that when I presented that there, I said when the Brits came to India, our share of the global economy was 18%. When they left, it was 2.5%. And now in 2047, we can aspire that our share can go back to 18%. But that's going to be about the share of our population at that point of time. Now China is already on its way. But the other big thing was that if you don't seize the moment, there are downside risks are almost existential, for the country.
And that is right now.
That's now. The moment is now. The next 5-10 years, and therefore we need to. And for that, what you need to do is to make development into a Jan Abhiyan. into a public movement.
Like
everybody joined, like we did for independence. No, whether you were a teacher, student, farmer, whatever you were doing, but you were fighting for independence. Same here. So if we can do that now, and that's where we are very fortunate to have Dattaji Hosable here. And he understood, that how groundwork is at that level, and therefore everybody has got to get involved, and everybody must understand that working for one's own narrow interest is not going to take you anywhere.
Or maybe take out time in the same day for
something else, or do something little differently, or as you have done, for example, working on just for the corporate media, you now shifted, or I might be doing, etc. And that can then attract a lot of our OCIs, because they are willing to come. They are actually now eager to come and work for our
corporate world. Wants to come join.
And also our domain experts. Maybe 100,000 Indians teaching in American and British and Singapore universities and so on. We can bring them here. So that's the thought behind this Bharat at 100. How to seize this moment and bring people together on the basis of trust. But that's something which is badly lacking in our country. How do we build this? So it really is, so we are not multilateral, multidimensional, multi-stakeholder. So that's the big thing.
And has it started, or is this the groundwork that you've been laid?
And we've been doing this for now 8 months, and now it's poised to. Now we are now going to pitch for funding, because it will require significant funding, because it's like
from the government.
No, it will not be generated by the people. That we've decided that we will not go government, but we'll be closely connected to the government. In the sense that whatever you find, we can quietly hand over to the government, but also at the same time give an honest feedback based on whatever we are doing, because that I think is also essential. So that's one big thing that we're doing here. And the second thing that we are trying to do now, and again we just started, is to start working with the states. Because in our country, each state is so
has a different machinery, different climate,
amazingly different from the other. Our diversity is actually bigger than that of Europe. No, from London to Moscow, they are far more diverse than that. So therefore, each state needs its own development blueprint, needs its own, tackling problems. Now we're working, we've written to several states.
And then different ministries within the state, like you'll address education differently.
We are going to be wanting to work at the state, qua-state, and then maybe, help them develop their blueprints, and then work with not the ministries, but with the districts. Because what we want to do is to make districts as their decision-making point. That's our thought, that if they become that, then some of our districts, are larger than some, Estonia and other countries like that. So they can, they can become a good economic unit. So that's the thought. So those are the two big things. And finally, I should say that India is the only country, which has the challenge of growing exponentially and becoming greener exponentially. Nobody has done that.
That's what I was saying, because if you're saying that we want to go back to a natural way of farming, would it be able to keep up with the kind of demand we have?
It can, it must, because there's no point having 70 million tons of food. And this fear that people are putting out that we'll do a Sri Lanka on ourselves, etc., is complete, utter nonsense. Already about 30 lakh farmers are practicing this. And what we want to encourage is greater learning from each other, because we don't want to foist it on them. We just want to create model, farms, etc., and take it from there. So that's and similarly for several things. For example, primary school education. The key. How do you improve that? How do you ensure? Now this won't happen again as a result of some government intervention, because but societal intervention as to how our schools become better, how the training and skilling of the children has much more of the local inputs into it, has much more skilling into it. And as you must realize, with the change in technology, the biggest thing that you want to do into children is to create the mental ability to adapt and be flexible and learn, continuously learn, because things will change so rapidly as this generation goes forward. Now, how do we handle all this? So we have Mr. R. Subramaniam, who is really the Secretary of Education, and in some sense the man behind the National Education Policy, who's joined this project. Similarly, we have Mr. Dr. Indu Bhushan.
What do you think of the new NEP?
Very good, a great start, but again needs to be implemented very differently and in a very nuanced way across the states. Because one
size fits
will not fit all, because what you have to do in Kerala will be completely different from what you have to do in Jharkhand. You can see that quite clearly. And the last thought, again, one I said, is that can we achieve our welfare levels of our people at incomes much lower than the OECD? Because to reach $70,000 per capita or $60,000 per capita may not be possible with the environment challenge that we have. And we have not been that kind of a society. We've been a society which has always given primacy to to reuse, reduce, and recycle. We've not been a
fast consumer.
We've not been a buy and throw society. So can we build those values back again? So I think we will need to do that. And one of the things that we require there is to have a much larger share of public goods and services in our consumption basket. Because if you do that, and there are good examples, there are the Scandinavians, who make their public education and public health and public parks and public housing as good as it can be, so that nobody is sort of hankering after things. Those are the kind of things that we need to work at, and which is what Pahle India is about and will be about, increasingly will be about.
Okay, you mentioned Chat GPT and AI in the middle, and for a country that's so youth centric, and you want to keep up with the technology abroad, but you've written about how the perils of too much, like if it's sophisticated too fast, and the thus far no further principle that you think countries should apply. So how do you think it's so unique to India? Like where do you think India is right now in terms of AI, and what should we do? Because we depend on our manpower and we don't want it to be completely replaced by technology. Yeah. What are our challenges when it comes to AI?
Let me start off by saying that there is no point or purpose in thinking about stopping AI or banning AI. The genie is well out of the bottle, so that cannot happen. And there is no power on earth. The government doesn't have that kind of, to be able to, stop it. So therefore, what we need to do is to create a conscious policy or a conscious, position vis-a-vis AI as to how do we make it in some sense responsive to our needs. Now, the gentleman, three of us wrote an open letter together. So one was Vembu, Sridhar Vembu, who runs a firm called Zoho, a software company. And he has shifted from Chennai to his village and he works from there. The other was Sharad Sharma, who is the iSpirit, and he's the man behind, his team is the man behind the entire UPI, the digital public infrastructure. And we work together, and the thought is that can we, in some sense, develop a pathway for harnessing AI for answering the challenges that we talked about. And I think that's the way forward. So therefore, we don't want it to simply just go, completely recklessly in destroying jobs, but we want to actually use it. Let me give you an example. Education. Now, AI can be used in some sense to create a much richer curriculum for our students, and also to effectively give a one-on-one tutors, China, well, beginning to do that, but you can do that. So rather than all this coaching, coaching sort of shops that you have, you can actually use AI to bring that whole teaching or learning to the child's home, and they can interact with it. And as AI develops more and more, we can actually respond to the child's need and a different learning ability. Now that's, similarly for health. You can use AI, for better diagnostics, of people, because but then better diagnostics to be able to prevent illness, rather than cure, and not make it. If you do it only all private, then it might well result in hospitals installing these machines, replacing the doctor. But that's the now. It's early days. The fact is that it is upon us. It's one of those technologies, and Kai-Fook Lee, a very Korean, the chief scientist for Microsoft at some page, he's and many others have supported him, saying that this is one technology which has the danger of destroying more jobs than it creates. In earlier industrial revolutions, whether it was steam, electricity, internet, more jobs, computer, and the fears of the Luddites, were sort of mistaken. This one does have that. So what we need therefore is again a very concerted joint effort between the government, the business and the academia, the domain experts, to create a conscious plan of action for the utilization of AI in meeting our challenges. Now, again, the examples can multiply, and we want to do that. And we want to therefore say that, look, AI is to be harnessed and not to be refused. And we can do this. We have the ability, we have the talent. We've done it before to do this, but it requires a much deeper and a much more coherent but also collaborative thinking. So let's not ministries in their own wisdom decide all of this behind closed doors, but call for a sort of open collaborative, and that's the thing. Yeah.
Also, another online gaming issue, which is again something which I saw a report on, and again, what is suggested from Pahle India Foundation is a light approach, restrictive light approach in that way. Again, is something which has boomed since the pandemic. There are some skill games versus luck games, and again, the youth is really invested in this. What is your suggestion when it comes to online gaming in India, and how it's just like kind of boomed in that way, but it's a sector that requires intervention.
It requires intervention, but a sensitive intervention. Again, if you ban it, it will only go underground. It's not going away. It's not going away. And it requires also a very conscious, large effort at making children aware of what is good and what is not good for them. Because I think that's the key. Because games can be huge, can generate huge learning. But at the same time, games can also generate a huge sort of addictions and perversity, if you like, to some extent. So I think that's the way to do it. Gaming should be discussed at the schools level. Gaming should be discussed at the parent-teachers meeting level. Gaming should be, and gaming should have a regulation, which is a light touch regulation. But it has to be combined with a kind of a public awareness campaign, because otherwise self-monitoring. Yes, absolutely. If you can, because awareness will create the self-monitoring. Because otherwise, to ban it or to let the market commercial forces run with it, neither of those is going to provide us, with the answer. There are constructive, positive uses of games, and lots of schools. Sharper, more creative, more imaginative. For example, if you are going to architecture, this is amazing, and several things. So I think that's the way I would look at it, which is that I've said it, so I don't want to repeat it. Yeah.
So areas of education technology are going to be part of the big vision, which is 2047. Your book on Narendra Modi and his challenges, which you wrote, and you've said that how you were trying to be objective about appraising the leader. If you were to write it now at this point, what do you think are his challenges going forward from now, or is it for another discussion?
Yeah, let's keep that for another discussion, because it's a very big thing, and some of them we have talked about already. Yeah, but let me say that he has a vision which is quite amazing for the country, and he works 24/7 to achieve that vision. One thing that I think needs is the form of governance that we have in this country. Because having worked inside and having looked at it from Niti Aayog, I think that's where he gets thwarted, because of this system that he has inherited.
Jan Abhiyan, do you think that comes from that?
It comes, but it's not, to implement that, to have it actually going,
Like a natural
may require a surgical rather than a homeopathic approach to government's reforms. Whether it is government, executive, or the judiciary, or the legislative. He talked about, for example, having simultaneous elections. Now that I put it as surgical reform, and it hasn't happened. But he went on for it, and now there are similar things. Unless we do that, his own aspirations, may not be achieved, despite his working, as I said, pretty much 24/7. So that's let me keep it at that at the moment, but then we'll talk about it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for chatting
Thank
with us, and thanks so much for being an organizer today and showing us the way forward with Bharat at 100th. All the best
Thank
for
you so
everything
much,
you're
and
doing.
all the best to you.
All right.